Welcome back inside the channel just after 6 o'clock on Tuesday, the 12th of May here in 2026. I'm Bobby Trosset. As always, daily Ravens content year-round. I hope you could like the video on your way in. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell. Consider becoming a channel member or a gift-giving membership this offseason. Appreciate you guys for being here with me tonight. It's brought to you by my friends at FanDuel, and we've got a lot to discuss, including Jesse Minter receiving some significant praise, not from a talking head, although there's been plenty of that, but from the sports books. Yeah, the Ravens have the third best odds to win the Super Bowl coming up in February of 2027. And that is prior to him coaching his first ever at the head coach position NFL game in the National Football League. So that to me feels significant with just the Rams and Seahawks in front of them. We'll hear from Troy Aikman. We'll hear from Mina Kimes. We'll hear from Jaylinn Hawkins and a number of other things as we kind of set the table less than a week out from voluntary organized team activities beginning, which is a 2-day session beginning on the 18th of next week. So looking forward to that and a whole lot more. Appreciate you guys for being here. And without further ado, let's look at the graphic courtesy of Get Up on ESPN earlier this morning. And this is by DraftKings Sportsbook. Obviously, the odds are subject to change as things happen between now and week one. But your Super Bowl favorites are the LA Rams, for my money, on paper, perhaps the most talented group roster-wise, league-wide, plus 800. Your reigning champion Seattle Seahawks, plus 950, most talented defense, league-wide. And in come the Ravens at plus 950 as well, interlocked with the Seattle Seahawks, plus 950. So I said third best, second best odds. They are tied with the Seattle Seahawks as favorites for the Super Bowl this upcoming season. The Bills are at plus 1,000. Eagles, Chargers, Chiefs, and Packers all round out the second half of the list at plus 1,500. Why? Why are the Ravens garnering this kind of respect? Why is Jesse Minter garnering this kind of respect? Let's talk about it. Mina Kimes talked a little bit about it on Jesse Minter's side of the ball.
I have some news out of Baltimore today. Adam, what more can you tell us? Dan, the big signing of the day was Calais Campbell, the 6-time Pro Bowl defensive end, returning to Baltimore, where he played from 2020 to 2022 on a 1-year deal. Played last year in Arizona, now will go back to Baltimore, the team that tried to trade for him at the trade deadline a couple of years ago. This will be his 19th NFL season. He turns 40 on September 1st. There are not many players who make it to 40. There are not many players who put their hand in the dirt, line up at the line of scrimmage, and make it to age 40. And he's been around and performing at an awful high level for an awful long time, which we'll get into here shortly.
Yeah, Adam, you hit it. He still plays at such a high level. ESPN has their pass rush win metric, which is the defensive player winning in 2.5 seconds or less. He was third amongst defensive tackles last year. He consistently finishes in the top 5 in that regard. And now you're looking at a Baltimore defensive line that signed Trey Henderson, drafted Zion Young, who's a very tough, great against the run edge from Missouri. If Nnamdi Madubuike is able to come back from his injury and you compare him with Travis Jones and Calais Campbell, this could be the best defensive line that Baltimore has fielded in years. But that Madubuike injury is something to keep your eye on because I do think it is one of the more pivotal stories of the entire offseason.
Yeah, Mina's spot on as usual, and you heard what she had to say there. Could have their best defensive line in years, could being the operative word there, and obviously we're operating under uncertain terms as it relates to Nnamdi Madubuike. But again, why, right? I'll keep coming back to that question. Why are the Ravens viewed in such high regard by the sports books? Well, let's get into, as a reminder, what they've been up to this offseason and what their weakest links were last year. We know that for the first 6 weeks of the season, they truly struggled on the defensive side of the ball in all 3 phases, particularly on the back end. We also know that they couldn't get to the quarterback damn near the entire season, in large part due to losing Nnamdi Madubuike in week 2 for the year. And we don't know, obviously, that's probably sounds like a broken record at this point. We don't know what his future is, what his imminent future is or availability. What we do know is that the most coveted candidate in this year's head coaching cycle chose Baltimore, and Baltimore chose him. Tilly, I need you to stop. I'm going to lose my train of thought here. Tilly, hey, little girl, come on. I forgot to put the blinds down because I'm running around like a nut, and she's trying to be my guard dog at the window, which you appreciate, but not when we're live, little girl, because it's too loud. Your barking's too loud. Here she comes over here to apologize. It's okay. Minter chose Baltimore. Baltimore chose Minter. He brings in, yes, a level of inexperience, but somebody that's seen it all during his short time in the NFL in Declan Doyle as a first-year offensive coordinator, somebody that was also coveted and wouldn't surprise me if Philly wanted him based on reports and things that I've heard over the last few months. Anthony Weaver comes in as, I would think, a future head coach candidate, and he got multiple interviews in that category this past offseason. So from a coaching standpoint, we haven't even talked about the Dwayne Ledfords and others, and I will get to that graphic. I think their coaching staff is garnering attention around the league for being a very capable, experienced, also blended with inexperience, but also potential group. That's what it's being garnered as, right? So that's something that the sports book and sports books will, of course, look at. Then you get to the splash in free agency, not Max Crosby, but Trey Hendrickson, somebody that's a year removed from posting back-to-back 17.5 sack seasons. He's been knocked for his run defense over the years, deservedly so. But let's be honest, the supporting cast alongside him in Cincinnati, on paper, is not up to snuff when it's compared to Baltimore, particularly if Nnamdi Madubuike is good to go for them in the middle. Jaylinn Hawkins, certainly one of the players that I'll continue to say is being overlooked, perhaps under the radar because of the Max Crosby saga, and then the pivot to Trey Hendrickson. Don't sleep on Jaylinn Hawkins. This is a guy that will get involved in the run game, will be your safety number 3, has a knack for the football, competed last year for the New England Patriots, was a part of that run to the Super Bowl in a losing effort. But this is a player that's been around the league for a long time, and I think will be a really good fit for the Ravens, both in performance, character, and everything else in between. So, and while we're on the Jaylinn Hawkins conversation, we had the privilege of catching up with him recently on the Collective, and he had this to say when I asked him about Jesse, his new head coach. Where Jesse's gone, whether it's in the collegiate ranks or 2 years with the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh, the guy just carves out defenses that are typically top 5, top 10 caliber in whatever metrics you can find out there. How did his projected potential as a head coach and his track record, both as a national championship winning play caller and somebody that had a lot of success in LA the last couple of years, factor into your decision?
Oh, the man factored in a lot, honestly. You know, when I was going through this process, you know, when it came down to 2 teams, but the Ravens being one of them, I basically just figured and looked at, you know, obviously knew the resume of who he was. We played the Chargers in the playoffs, so I knew what type of defense they ran, kind of just from seeing our offense go against our scout team defense, because we were giving them the similar looks to what the Chargers do. And so I liked what they did. You know, I'm like, oh, they do this and this, and then watched a couple of tape and film of them, and then had some boys that played on the Chargers. So it was kind of easy, you know, to reach out and, you know, see what they were doing. And I'm like, man, these boys making plays. You know, everybody's all over the field. So I felt like it was a no-brainer. I feel like it was a perfect fit. So that played a major role. Can't lie.
Again, the Jesse Minter cachet, not having coached, head coach-wise, a game yet in his young NFL career. Clearly that had a factor in Jaylinn's decision to pursue the Ravens when the Ravens pursued him in free agency. I'm sure there were other options out there for him. Calais Campbell, of course, not a needle-moving acquisition at this point in his career, an illustrious one at that, year 19 on deck for the soon-to-be 40-year-old, but he will absolutely bring a level of expertise, a chance to stop the run, and bring that interior push that his 6'8", 300-plus pound frame has been doing in this league at a high level for close to 2 decades. He's got one thing left remaining on that future Hall of Fame resume to check off, and we all know what kind of a hardware that is. John Simpson, expected to be your starting left guard, I would think. He's played primarily at left guard throughout his entire career. And, of course, Vanga Ioane expected to be his running mate, I would think at right guard, knowing that they had Voorhees and Fa'alele there last year. Again, this is all on paper and a projection and obviously assumes good health between now and September. That's a significant upgrade. And oh, by the way, Dwayne Ledford comes in to lead the group as an offensive line coach. And he was given, and I should say, he extended a significant request to John Simpson throughout the free agency process. And that was tenacity, the desire, the need, the requirement of having a level of tenacity, something that he told John Simpson, as we heard on the lounge earlier today, that they needed, and they needed to get back to in Baltimore.
Coach Led, his biggest thing is speed off the ball, and he, like, obviously he watched my film and stuff like that, and he loves like how I move and stuff. So he was like, just bring that and just be who you are, just be nasty, be like, bring that tenacity, and everything else like speak for itself.
Be nasty. That's coming from new offensive line coach and run game coordinator Dwayne Ledford, who comes over from the Atlanta Falcons. And John Simpson was very, very complimentary of his relationship building with him thus far. Like
the best teachers I think I've ever had. Like beyond being a coach, like he's a great teacher, and he wants it to be to a point where it's just like you get the play call and you get up there, you get to the line fast and you just run it. Like he don't want you second guessing or anything like that. So he kind of like tries to simplify it and try to make everything is like easy to understand as possible. So I mean, I love the way he coaches, and I love the he's gonna get the best out of each and every one of his players, and he doesn't have to do a whole lot of cussing and hoot and hollering. He's gonna love you like he's like you're one of his kids, and you know what I'm saying. And that's everything I got so far. It's only OTAs, but he's, like I said, one of the better teachers I've ever had.
Teaching. Connectors. That's what we heard all about throughout the interview process. And then afterwards, as Jesse started to build out his staff and get behind the camera and microphone, in front of the camera, I should say, once he was named head coach of the Ravens. If you're just tuning in and wondering what's going on here, look, I think it's major praise and a very, very high compliment that Jesse Minter, as a first-year head coach, is in a position where the sports books, DraftKings in this case, have the Ravens as the third best odds terms of the Super Bowl favorites coming up in February of 2027. Short of the Seahawks, and I should say only short of the Rams. Both Seattle and Baltimore find themselves at plus 950. Rams lead the pack, and I think that's deserving given what they were last year, given what they've done this offseason already, and just how talented all three phases are on that roster coming up in 26. So that's what we're discussing right now, and I'm kind of getting into the why. Why are they viewed in such high regard? So we left off with John Simpson. I talked about Benga Ioane. He's expected to be a plug-and-play starter at guard right out of the gate. Yes, there is an elephant in the room that remains at center, but I'm of the belief that Dwayne Ledford deserves the benefit of the doubt, and you've got a lot of cooks in the kitchen that could potentially rise to the top, all right, in competition, assuming there isn't an acquisition or a trade between now and camp or between now and week one that could be serviceable, if not more than serviceable at center. Zion Young, a player in the second round, much like Mike Green the year prior, that was worthy of a pick. An edge rusher presence that at Missouri and at Marshall, these guys were high-impact players, high-motored players, and guys that can compete in the trenches right out of the gate. Mike gets ready for year two. And, of course, Zion, you figure, will factor in to the rotation somehow, some way, right out of the gate as well. These are athletic freaks. These are players with high upside and players that can very naturally add a level of physicality that the Ravens defense has lacked in recent seasons. And by the way, not just the physicality component of it, but the nasty. And when you listen to Zion Young in his press conferences, when you look into Zion Young, when you see what he accomplished at Missouri, you like the fit there in terms of his demeanor, his MO, and what gets this guy going in Baltimore. We also know that there's a slew of players in the form of rookies outside of their first opening round selections in Vanga and Zion. They're going to have a case to be made at their respective positions as well. Red zone threats in Jacoby Lane and Elijah Surratt, a pair of day 2, day 3 wide receivers that now get factored in. Highly productive players, particularly in the red zone at their respective schools that they spent the collegiate time in. You bring in Matthew Hibner, expected to be tight end 2, if you will. Josh Cuevas will have something to say about that. We know that Mark Andrews is back as the veteran presence that he is. And that contract extension that he signed last year certainly doesn't how should I put this? It's not a hampering, back-breaking type of extension that the Ravens awarded him. It was one that they couldn't get done with Isaiah Likely, and they pivoted to Mark Andrews. And I, for one, think that I wouldn't be surprised at all if a year from now we're thinking and saying out loud, damn, that extension made sense, because look at the production. Look at the rejuvenation. Look at the resurgence of Mark Andrews, given the newness of this system, given the fact that he's fully healthy, given the idea that he's motivated. And oh, by the way, Isaiah Likely is not a part of the equation anymore as well. So Hibner could absolutely do what he can to make his case for target share. But I think it's Mark Andrews that will be far and away, aside from Zay Flowers, the most targeted player in Baltimore next year. That's my prediction, should health stay intact. It'll be Zay Flowers and then Mark Andrews, just like old times. That's my guess based on the pass catcher distribution projection. Chandler Rivers, of course, will be competing for a nickel role and playing special teams, the cornerback out of Duke. We know that Adam Randall will be in the middle of a competition, you would think, for RB3 with Rasheen Ali. Ryan Eckley at punter, expected to replace and be Jordan Stout's successor. He'll be competing with Luke Elzinga. And we know that the rest of this class is more lottery tickets than anything else. But hey, who knows? Rayshawn Benny played for Jesse Minter at Michigan. You never know. Is he going to factor in on early downs and make the 53-man roster and show why he's slipped to them and shouldn't have slipped to him? We'll see. Will Evan Burns then find his way into the rotation at center competition over the summer? I don't know, but it'll be something to watch. And we haven't even talked about, obviously, because it's not an addition, but the restructure that made team building more possible for Lamar Jackson earlier this offseason, who now enters season number 9, will be fully healthy, God willing, come week 1. And he is the engine that makes this entire thing go, with his fellow future first ballot Hall of Famer and Derrick Henry in the same backfield. That's the new look Ravens at a glance, in a nutshell. I haven't talked about every single position room, and obviously there's still some things that need to be settled and settled in a hurry, particularly center, RB3, safety number 4. We know the first 3 after the Kayvon Wallace signing yesterday, journeyman, and knowing that Keandre Jackson as a special teamer, also a safety as well, is on this team. Those will be things to watch. But you feel good about what you have up front. You know that Travis Jones has been extended. He's somebody that commands double teams. Calais Campbell at 39, soon to be 40, still commands double team type of attention. You put Nnamdi Madubuike at some point in there, a month, 2 months into the season, obviously ballparking his timetable for recovery. You're cooking with grease. And oh, by the way, Roquan Smith expected to rejuvenate himself as well within the confines of this new Jesse Minter-led defensive scheme. Who will be his running mate week 1? Is Teddy Buchanan indeed ahead of schedule, coming off last year's second half of the season ACL tear? That'll be something to watch. If not, will Trenton Simpson have a significant impact in what's a contract year for him? When I say contract year, I immediately think of Tavius Robinson. Edge setter, somebody that's a nasty against the run, does the little things that don't show up in the box score. Will he be motivated in the middle of a contract year? And what will you get from Kyle Hamilton now that Jesse Minter has him as his chess piece at his disposal? His Derwin James, if you will. Go back and look at the metrics what Jesse was able to accomplish and post in 2 years' time with the Chargers. They ranked, for the most part, generally speaking, top 5, top 10 in most advanced metrics on that side of the ball. And while Jesse assumes a ton of responsibility that was not on his plate as a coordinator in Los Angeles, and it'll be hard to predict. And of course, you only know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. I still think that you're going to get a level of delegation that's as intelligent and as thoughtful as Jesse has appeared to be with the way that he's put together this staff very strategically throughout the course of this offseason. We will get into that coaching staff and why that might be a factor. And again, why you're here, and that is this. The high major praise is that the Ravens have the second best odds in the league, according to DraftKings Sportsbook, to win the Super Bowl in this upcoming season, only short of the Los Angeles Rams. This episode is brought to you by my friends at FanDuel, guys, and at sportsbook.fanduel.com. You can check out the NBA in action tonight, and it's the Spurs and the T-Wolves from San Antonio, Game 5. Julius Randle to score 15 or more points. Stephon Castle, 20 or more. Wemby, thank God he wasn't suspended. That would have been soft after the elbow. Wemby to score 25 or more, and Anthony Edwards to score 30 or more. That is tonight's consideration for FanDuel's popular same-game parlay bets. It is the featured grouping tonight at plus 1,163. $10 wagers win you over $116, but that is far from what they have available for you tonight. There's another series in action as well in Detroit between the Cavs and Pistons, and obviously the Stanley Cup playoffs roll on, as well as the PGA Championship if you want to get involved in golf or any of the other big major sports leagues across the sport world. So thanks to them, and thanks to all of you guys for being with me here tonight. Go follow them online if you haven't already at FanDuel. And again, you can go to sportsbook.fanduel.com to learn more. Please gamble responsibly, and if you need help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. So why else? I'll keep going back to that. Why? Why are the Ravens viewed in such high regard? I think it has something to do with this staff that Jesse's put together. Again, you have some experience and you have some inexperience. Makes for a nice concocted blend. Jesse Minter, inexperienced, but the most coveted candidate in the league, ahead of his time. Somebody that's done his time, certainly, and comes in with a pedigree and a track record that makes you think it's not going to take all that much time to figure it out at the NFL level, much like one of his best friends, Mike McDonald, in Seattle. Declan Doyle comes in as his first-year offensive play caller. He worked alongside Ben Johnson last year in Chicago, and they had a ton of success on Caleb Williams' side of the football. I think Declan going to be really exciting to see what he does. Are we looking at 3 or 4 wide receiver sets, as Eric DeCosta indicated recently? Are we looking at heavy tight end usage? What are we looking at? Are we moving away from designed runs with Lamar, or will that be a part of the process as well? I want to cut to, if I can find it, EDC talking about what Declan's offense just might consist of in 2026 and beyond.
Certainly look different at times. I mean, in the end, there's only so many different things you can do. But formationally, I think you'll see us in 3 and 4 wide receivers, probably a little bit more. We won't be using, as you alluded to, a fullback. We've got 4 tight ends on the roster. The idea would be really to, create sort of a surprise element to the offense where defenses really don't get a sense for what we're trying to do in any given play. With a fullback in the game, most of the time you're going to run the football. With tight ends, there's still the element of the passing attack and throwing the ball. So, I think, is that going to be 12 personnel, 13 personnel, whatever that might be? It's going to be multiple. And having these receivers on the roster now, we feel really strongly about the 6 guys that we have. The tight ends, they all do different things really well. Our running backs is second to none. And I think the thing that our offensive line is going to be able to do really well is pass protect. We feel really good about Ronnie Stanley and Roger Rosengarten. I think our guard position is evolving. We feel really, really good about that compared to last year. And obviously, centers are kind of a position right now in a state of flux, and we're trying to figure that out. We weren't able to address that in the draft. There are a couple guys that we really liked in the draft at the center position, but the board didn't fall the right way. Fortunately, we have time. We don't play games until September. There will be some opportunities for us between now and then to address the center position, whether that's free agency, the draft, other things, a trade, whatever that might be. There'll be different things that we can do. It didn't work out for us this past weekend, but I think that there may be some potential trades we can look at and some other things we can do to address that position. But overall, we felt really, really strong about the players that we added, and we're excited.
Eric DaCosta last month, courtesy of WBAL Radio, previewing what could be a look at the 2026 offense in Baltimore. And you heard part of what he had to say. We know that they're phasing the fullback position out like so many teams have done around the league. Pat Ricard is now a member of the New York Giants. Yes, you have Lucas Scott, the former undrafted rookie out of Army West Point, that's a part of this 90-man roster. But I can't imagine that one of the coveted final 53-man roster spots would go to him after comments like that, and knowing what Declan Doyle wants to do, knowing a little bit about the scheme that was run, again, this past season in Chicago, where he served as Ben Johnson's non-primary play calling offensive coordinator. Anthony Weaver, we've talked about him. We've talked about the pedigree. We've talked about how popular of a player and coach he was and is in some cases for the Ravens and around the league. He has garnered a ton of respect and a reputation that makes him a candidate to be a future favorite for next year, maybe the year after that, so on and so forth, hiring cycle for head coach. Harlan Bauer comes in as the outside linebackers coach from Duke. Harlan, I had a chance to catch up with him in Indianapolis. He's fired up about the opportunity and the unit itself, and he'll have a chance to reunite with a couple Duke players now that Chandler Rivers is back on the back end. You know, Chandler Rivers, of course, is a part of the process as a cornerback. He played for Duke. And then Aeneas Peebles, prior to transferring to Virginia Tech, was a Duke player. Does Peebles make the 53 this season? We'll have to see. Last year, he factored out, or I was on the outside looking in terms of game day scratches, and he was healthy for the most part. Not sure they trusted him fully against the run, but he was a day 3 pick last year out of Virginia Tech, a.k.a. FUB, Aeneas Peebles. You guys all know who I'm referring to. Let's see if he can factor in and find himself a role in year 2 in Baltimore. Marcus Brady, pass game coordinator. And maybe I shouldn't go through every single one of these names that make up the Ravens coaching staff, but I just thought that I would revisit it to kind of understand a component of why the Ravens are looked at as legitimate, bona fide, just as they were a year ago, which sometimes means very little, right? Super Bowl contenders. They were viewed as the most, if not right with alongside Philadelphia, the most talented roster a season ago. And clearly, based on DraftKings Sportsbook and other evaluations, they're viewed to be very similar, I should say, a year later. We've barely talked about Lamar Jackson, and of course, he makes this entire thing possible. Troy Aikman, though, talked about Lamar Jackson this morning on ESPN's Get Up, and I thought he gave a very refreshing take in terms of where Lamar is right now at this point in his career. He also mentioned Josh Allen in a different part of the segment, but here is Mike Greenberg and Troy Aikman earlier today. Of course, Troy needs no introduction. Analyst, longtime for longtime color analyst with Joe Buck on Fox, but they recently, within the last few years, shifted to ESPN on Monday Night Football. But 3-time Super Bowl champion, obviously a Hall of Famer, and then some. I appreciated his perspective earlier this morning.
And you are looking live at the latest odds for the Super Bowl, which once again will be on ESPN. DraftKings Sportsbook says the Rams are actually the favorites, just slightly ahead of the defending champion Seahawks. And then you see the Ravens and the Bills next, and you see the rest that are on your list as we talk things over with the Hall of Famer Troy Aikman, the voice of Monday Night Football. We announced the first Monday night game this year will be Kansas City and Denver. So we just talked about some NFC contenders. Let's go to the AFC. There are 2 quarterbacks in particular that I think are playing for immortality. You're an immortal. You won 3 Super Bowls. You're in the Hall of Fame. There are 2 guys who I think
are just missing that championship from their resume. And one of them is Lamar Jackson. He's a 2-time league MVP. We all know about the history in the playoffs. For the first time now, it feels like there's been a little bit of a culture shift there. New coach, feels like a little bit more is being sort of put on his plate. What are your expectations for Lamar Jackson going forward?
Well, the expectations are what they've been. I mean, you expect Lamar to be in the MVP conversation. You expect the Ravens to be right there at the end of the day, which they typically have been. I agree with you completely, Greeny, that when you are a veteran quarterback, franchise quarterback, and you've had the years that Lamar has had, now the coach leaves, you got a young coach, first-time coach coming in, that puts a lot on the plate of the quarterback. So the expectations certainly are going to be higher for him. Hopefully he can stay healthy, but I don't think anything changes. They didn't make that change expecting any kind of rebuild or a slow development as a football team. So the expectations are what they are. He understands that, and he's probably feeling a little bit more of the heat than he otherwise would.
Like when you're I'm just thinking this through, like when you're a franchise quarterback, you with the star on your helmet, I mean, there's so much that goes with that. And now here he was in on the coaching conversations at least. I don't know that he was actually in the interviews, but he was a part of that. I mean, that really there's a lot that goes into being a star quarterback.
Well, there is, and there's some ownership that comes with that. And I do think that he was owed the opportunity to at least be conversed with as far as what they were going to do at the head coaching position and have some input on that. He's earned that. And so I'm a big Lamar Jackson fan. He's one of the obvious real superstars of our league. But it's going to be interesting to see what that looks like. We've grown so accustomed to it being done one way with John Harbaugh, and now with Jesse Minter coming in, what that might look like, and how will things change offensively with a new offensive coordinator for him as well.
Thought that was level-headed, fair analysis from the Hall of Famer Troy Aikman. Of course, there was that whole back and forth along the lines of trademarking for number 8 within the last year or two. He could have taken a swipe at him there. He's too much of a pro. I can't remember how that ended between Aikman and Jackson. I don't believe Lamar won that, but I'd have to go back and look, and maybe even AI can help me right now, just so I'm not spitballing on that. Let's see. I think there was like a lawsuit or something along those lines. Well, okay, Lamar dropped his year-long legal challenge against Troy Aikman's 8 beer trademark in August of 2025. Jackson, who owns the Era 8 apparel brand, had argued that Aikman's use of the number on apparel would cause consumer confusion. Yeah, so that didn't work out in Lamar's favor. But anyway, Troy's a pro. And the point in bringing, I don't even know why I brought that up. The point in bringing up the Troy Aikman segment is that you heard what he said there. This decision to move on from John Harbaugh and allow Jesse Minter to take over doesn't come with like this new branded level of like expectations that aren't still sky high. No, there shouldn't be any delay or any absence or any like temporary period of buffer. No, they're getting this thing going right now and expect it to pick up right where it left off, if not more so, because last year obviously was below standard on a number of levels. So it may be year 9, yes, for those of you in the live chat, it may be year 9 for Lamar Jackson, but it's year 1 for Jesse Minter and Lamar Jackson and that head coach quarterback combination.
A little bit. We don't really know much about him other than he needs to be on a microphone more.
Yeah, the man.
That is what we expect. He, rightfully so, said, "Hey, I'm good at my job. I can hire people. I can kind of figure it out." What was the interview process like, and why ultimately do you think he decided that you were the right guy to be the steward of the Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson and a loaded talent after an incredibly long run by John Harbaugh?
Yeah, I mean, number one, I think he's the best owner in sports. He creates an environment where you're always going to be, doing what's needed to be successful. So there's not any amount of money he's not willing to spend. Any type of thing you think might help you be better, he's providing. So, and then through the interview process, I think there was a little bit of, this guy understands the foundation that's been built here, but he's also now been out on his own and has some different ideas of how to, bring a few new things while also understanding and respecting the history, how it's been built, why it's been built a certain way. And so we certainly want to lean into that. We want to lean into what's been really good there. But I also think just having a younger, newer, fresher thing sometimes,
New message, yes.
people embrace change.
Definitely, and I think Baltimore Ravens fans are excited. I don't know if they expected you to necessarily be, especially because Lamar Jackson is your quarterback. Whenever you think about being the head coach of a team that has Lamar Jackson, how that has to feel.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Not that Herbert, obviously, we love Herbert, and we think the same thing about Justin Herbert. We think he is a fantastic player. But you're Lamar Jackson's head coach, especially at this level where his arm is maybe best in the league. Obviously, he's still Lamar. How does that kind of, motivate you, inspire you? How have you handled that entire relationship?
I would say it's certainly motivating to, number one, build a team that allows him to have success at the level that he's chasing. There's nothing more that he would rather do than to bring a championship to Baltimore. And so when you know that he's your quarterback, you always have a chance. Motivating to build a great defense, motivating to hire a great offensive staff, motivating to build a great special teams so that the team around him is up to his level.
He's so much fun to watch.
From the NFL Combine, part of the offseason messaging from Jesse Minter talking about his superstar QB1 in Lamar Jackson. And, wouldn't you love to know some of the behind the scenes of how that relationship building is forming? Because all we have to go off of is that Lamar has been highly present, highly engaged, and highly dialed in all throughout this offseason. Since the voluntary offseason workout regimen began weeks ago now, and the OTAs, of course, next week, we'll wait on pins and needles as always. And we'll be following that closely to see if he is in attendance as he was the last time there was a change within the confines of the coaching staff, which, of course, was offensive coordinator 3 years ago. But there's more because Jesse, again, has been very consistent in his messaging as it relates to Lamar and the importance that they get that relationship right moving forward right out of the gate.
Lamar Jackson as your quarterback. This is obviously, whenever we talked about the coaching vacancy in the coaching cycles, there was an MVP available with no head coach up there in Buffalo. There was an MVP in Baltimore. I felt like it was the first time, long time, first time, forever. Whenever Lamar Jackson's a quarterback.
Like you said, these jobs with this caliber of quarterback don't often turn over. And so when it came open, the respect and love I have for Lamar, and having been here before, having seen him come up as he was drafted here.
And Lamar won an MVP. Felt like it was a little different styles.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. That was one of his first interviews, Jesse Minter, as the next Ravens head coach. And remember, prior to him being the one chosen, remember some of the national discourse on the magnitude of the moment that the Ravens had to get right in choosing John Harbaugh's successor as it relates to maximizing everything that Lamar can still do at this point in his career, which again is entering year number 9. Remember some of that national dialogue?
32 different executives. If you were to poll people around the league, I think the Ravens would finish in the top 2 or 3 as best run organizations in all of football. And of course that includes Harbaugh, but it precedes Harbaugh too when Brian Billick was the coach. They have an owner who cares. They have an owner who spends money. And with Ozzie Newsome in the room, which he still very much is, you have a thread line from the Ray Lewis, Ed Reed years to Eric DaCosta, which is more of the Lamar current situation that they're in now, where they go to the playoffs every year and they can't get over the hump. What I looked at when Steve Bisciotti said that in the press conference, it wasn't this, hey, we're handing the reins over to Lamar. It was a challenge to Lamar Jackson. This is going to be an 8-hour day. And when we interview a coach, we're not just sitting here in a boardroom and saying, what do you like about football? We're going to take you, and you're going to take us through your scheduling, through your entire staff, your nutrition, how you plan on using a strength coach to make us better so we don't get injured down the line. And that is going to be not just one candidate, 4 or 5 or 6 candidates. We're talking about 8-hour days sitting, absorbing, and then you're not going to be the one making the pick. I'm still making the pick. But we're going to give you a voice. And that is a challenge to Lamar Jackson, because what Steve Bisciotti is saying is, if I'm flying myself up to Florida, from Florida on the private jet, and I'm going to be doing these interviews for 8 hours a day, I am giving you the grace and giving you the opportunity to do it as well. Do it. be there, be a part of this, and offer your perspective. What I would add as sort of an insider note, and as a reporter, someone who's spoken to people who've already interviewed for this Ravens job in the initial first rounds, and Steve Bisciotti has not been in these interviews, the questions are in line with what we're talking about. What is your plan for Lamar Jackson? How do we maximize Lamar Jackson in the next few years? How do you work with this team that we have now? What would be an addition that you would add to Lamar Jackson to make us get over the hump? And what's interesting, some of the offensive coaches are interviewing not only for the head coaching job, but they're interviewing for the offensive coordinator job as well. Because this job is so coveted that you might say, we love Cliff Kingsbury, or we love Mike McDaniel, or we love whoever's on the street as an offensive mind. But we think Robert Saleh or Brian Flores or Jesse Minter might be the best head coach. But that offensive coordinator position, who's going to be working with Lamar on a daily basis and getting the most out of him, might be as valuable and as important a hire as the head coaching.
Just a look back on some of the discourse on the national level to January and what was being said. And now it's Jesse Minter's show. And now we actually have news going back to March, but news nonetheless that's significant for the Ravens moving forward and obviously continues to underscore the very, very astronomical level of importance of getting an extension done in the year ahead. But the restructured contract details for Lamar that came out in March, as Tom Pelissero notes here, are as follows. He's got a $49.95 million signing bonus. His base salary is $1.3 million. So there's some manipulation going on here within the contractual ranks. A $750,000 workout bonus, and if his offseason trend of participation, attendance continues, then he's going to hit that. The Ravens also added a void year, so Jackson still makes $52 million this year, but his cap number drops by $39.96 million in 26 and rises to an astronomical $84.49 million in 2027. So again, the idea of an extension, the importance of an extension getting done at some point in the year ahead is paramount. But for the here and now, they got something done. They found middle ground. Lamar does not negotiate in the middle of the season. There is still a chance that something gets done between now and week 1, but it would not surprise me as Lamar continues to do things on his own terms. If he wants to see what the operation consists of in Baltimore in year 1, given all the change. And if that's the case, and if it goes well, perhaps it's not till the offseason in this time next year, 2027 offseason, until he goes pen to paper on what will absolutely be a record-setting, resetting with across the board at the quarterback position, NFL contract extension. So that is that. As we look ahead and look behind at why the Ravens find themselves among the favorites to win the Super Bowl in February of 2027. I believe that's at SoFi, is it not? SoFi, then Atlanta. I think that's the order of business. Anyway, guys, if you haven't already done so, would love for you to join the Bobby Trosset HQ. That's the Discord server. We're coming up on 1,300 members, and it is free to join. There is constant chatter in here across the board all day long, 24/7, and it's a hub for dialogue across the sports world. Great community, a community that is constantly in touch, constantly finding like-minded topics. Obviously, the football chat is pretty self-explanatory, what's discussed in here, and it really is a great gathering spot for those of you. Oh, look at this. I didn't even see this. Nate Wiggins surprised his partner with a helicopter flight for Mother's Day. Huh. Okay, ML football, you never know. Evan threw this in here, but maybe this is, I don't know. This is the first time I've seen this. Should have been a quick hit today. My bad there. Anyway, Bobby After Dark has been relatively busy as well in the last 24 hours or so. For those of you who caught yesterday's show, you probably know why, but I won't waste your time. And there's Evan in real time right now, probably multitask watching and Discord chatting. Appreciate you guys. Go join that. I just dropped the link into the live chat if you haven't already done so. Would love for you to join that community. And if you could, like the video on your way out, I'd appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell. consider becoming a channel member or gift-giving membership this offseason. And I am up against the clock. For those of you that are in the waiting room, I unfortunately do not have time to take the guest calls tonight. I got dinner. The oven's about to blow up off to my right, but I wanted to pop on for a little bit. And hey, everybody remember that the collective is in a premiere mode tonight. So we pre-recorded earlier, and so we won't be live, but it'll be premiering, as always, in the usual time slot at 8 o'clock. I thought Jeff was really insightful about a number of new developments in Baltimore. And then we will be live on Thursday. I'm going to have a busy night. We're going to do our our schedule release megacast on the vault. And then I'll go directly from the megacast into the collective coverage. So that's what's coming up. And I look forward to all of that. And go subscribe to the collective if you haven't already done so. Would love for you guys to go check out that community. We're coming up on 8,000 subscriptions. And thank you guys for hanging out. I will catch up with all of you soon, beginning tomorrow, if not before, at 12 noon Eastern on Wednesday the 13th. Later, guys. Thanks for dropping by tonight.